Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Daniel Felt on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Daniel. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well today, Steve. How are you doing?
Doing great. You in Minnesota?
I am, yeah. We're right just west of downtown Minneapolis here in Golden Valley, Minnesota.
It's the good time of year now, right? You got decent weather?
Yeah, someone asked me the other day if I was going on any trips, and I said, no, we have like 10 nice days in Minnesota, and that's midsummer here. So, yeah, it's finally nice right now, and it is. People say it's nice to have the 4 seasons. Unfortunately, winter is like 6 months here. So, but I think if they were all 3 months, it'd be great. But it's beautiful weather here, mid-70s right now. We're enjoying the 10,000 lakes and all the cabins and all that good stuff.
Is it true the mosquitoes are giant this time of year, or is that not started yet?
I don't know if they get larger. I think they just get more annoying. So their egos get significantly larger. Almost everyone sprays somehow. You do something. Either you have a screened-in back porch or something, because right around dusk, it gets unmanageable. You get forced inside, and pretty much no matter what, if you haven't done something to prevent the mosquitoes.
I didn't know if they were out in June or it doesn't happen until July or.
Oh, they're out full force. It seems like once it thaws, like once they can literally survive, like just barely. Once it gets into the 60s, they're out and they'll be here till Christmas. It feels, but I think it's right around Halloween they go away, and then the cold comes.
Did you grow up in that area? Is that where you're from?
Yeah, I actually grew up on a farm in mid-central Minnesota, little hobby farm. My parents raised and sell golden retriever puppies, and one of 6 kids. So I grew up out there, but as an entrepreneur and business person and going to college, I kind of ended up in the metropolitan area. Today, my wife and I and our 2 kids live a little bit west of the cities, and we have a small 10-acre it's turned into a hobby farm. We've got a few too many chickens, a couple horses, dogs, and cats. So we're enjoying life out there on our little slice of heaven.
Tell me about your folks, your parents, 6 kids, huh? Where were you in the mix? Tell me about your mom and dad, and where were you there?
Yeah, so my parents, I don't know, pretty stereotypical high school sweethearts, got married, had a dream of having 6 kids, and they accomplished that. So I was number 4 of 6. My brother and I are right in the middle, and we're surrounded by 2 girls on each side. So I got to know women very well growing up, but yeah, my parents are just very like personable people, love kids. They're really involved like in our church growing up, youth group, things like that. And today they have 13 grandkids, so they really love that as well. And yeah, just good, salty earth, good working people.
What'd your dad do and for a living?
Yeah, my parents are kind of, I would almost say like gender reverse roles for what you typically think. My dad was a manager at a milk processing plant, so they would get, it was roughly like 9 million pounds of milk a day, and then they would process that into all the different things and sell to large companies like Kraft and Hershey's, like 50-gallon barrels of whatever. And through growing up, my parents started raising and selling golden retriever puppies in 1981, and that business slowly grew and grew until the point where if you want to get a dog from them, it's really hard because there's such a high demand for it. So it's gotten to the point where if you want to get a dog, you submit a request on their website. And when they have a litter of puppies available, they will send an email out and say, we have 10 puppies available. And basically the first 10 people to submit an application, that's it. And then it's closed out again. Because, between Mother Nature and then what you're available, they can only have 5 or 6 litters a year, and still raise a quality dog. So they've really built an incredible reputation. They spend $0 on marketing. It's like a third comes word of mouth, a third comes from referrals and vets, and then a third is repeat customers buying another dog. So I think that their longest lasting client has bought 6 dogs from them since 1981 over and over and over. So we learned a lot about entrepreneurship. My mom is an incredible entrepreneur. My dad retired a little bit early, and now they kind of full-time take care of their farm out there, and they still have about 5 or 6 litters a year of golden retriever pups.
Wow. So your mom kind of ran the dog business while your dad worked at the milk place a little bit.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, very good. Wow, cool story. They've been married for a long time too, huh?
Yeah, I think they're about 45 years married super young. My mom was, I think, married at 18, pregnant at 20, and had her first kid at 21. So a little different than your typical age nowadays when people are getting married.
And busy at your house growing up with 6 kids. What kind of kid were you? Were you a straight A student? Were you a good kid, rebel? Like where were you in the mix there?
Yeah, I've never really been great at school. I would say I put an honest effort into it, but like I didn't have a backpack my senior year. So I was a be honor roll kid, but I was also the kid at a very young age. And my parents laugh at this story, but like I was the one at like 3 or 4 years old that I would tell my mom like, "Hey, we're almost out of milk, so we should put that on the grocery list." And they would just laugh at like a 3-year-old being like, using that type of mindset of like, hey, like foreseeing that things that we need. So I was a mama's boy for sure. I barely got any spankings growing up. I felt like I was very obedient. I had a little bit of rebellious side, but I think looking back and knowing the way that a lot of people are, I think I was pretty easy on my parents. Fear really drove me. Like I was really involved in athletics,
Okay.
and so I never like I didn't drink or party at all in high school because I really cared about athletics, and that really led into a lot of other things, stepping stones to things that into the future. But I didn't want to miss if you got caught like drinking. I didn't want to miss 2 weeks or several games or things like that. So and I ended up like a captain or a drum major in Western Minnesota. Marching band was cool, and so I'm sure a lot of people think it's really nerdy, but back then like the cool kids were actually in marching band, or at least cool. But so I ended up that like, just really involved in those things, and I just ultimately wasn't willing to get caught doing something I wasn't supposed to, and then pay those consequences. So
Did you
I don't think I really got. Go
did
ahead.
you loosen up? Did you loosen up when you went to Minnesota State, or did you experience life a little bit more then?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say I was a pretty typical college kid. Still obedient, still made it to. I swam a few years in college, and we had I think it ended up being about 11 practices a week, so several 2-a-days. And Saturday morning we had practice, Friday morning and Saturday morning. So
Ooh,
Thursday nights in college weren't too typical for me. Friday night wasn't, but I think I'm safe to say that on Saturday nights our swim team made up for what was lost on Friday morning. And we had a good times, and slowly grew out of that too.
how'd you meet your wife?
Of all things, we actually met on a camping trip. She was dating someone else, and I at the moment when we met, like there wasn't really anything there, and then I actually followed her on social media of all things, and I was like scrolling through it. I was like, this is actually a really interesting person. Like I wish I would have like asked her a few more questions about all these things that she's got going on. And then I asked my buddies about her, and they're like, "Yeah, she's dating this loser guy. They've been together for like a couple of months, whatever." And then I ended up seeing her again, and I had a little bit of liquid courage. I don't know, two or three beers, but I as respectfully as possible, I think the line that I said was, "I just want to let you know if you were ever single one day, I think I'd make you really happy."
Ooh,
And
it's a good line. I like that line.
yes,
It's a good one.
yeah, thank you. So try to be respectful, but the guy wasn't there, or the boyfriend. Well, anyways. She broke up with him, and we went on a date a week later, and we dated for 5 months. Then we were engaged for 6 months. We were married within a year of meeting each other. So it was.
Now, when you started dating, were you already out of college? Were you guys both out of school?
Yeah, we were. Yeah. So I had just started Kura Home. I was 26 years old, and she's a few years younger than me. So she had been working at her job for a few years as well.
Wow. So you had just started. You're a brand new entrepreneur when you started dating her.
Yeah, she didn't marry me for money. I can promise you that. That's a for sure.
What was she doing at the time?
She's actually working for the state of Minnesota in the infectious disease department. So she kind of made it so that if you were like moved from one side of the state to the other or to another state, your essentially like all your vaccines and all that information would travel with, like, it was all in one database. So she controlled that database and then educated all the hospitals and clinics and all those things on how to keep that up to date to make it more seamless for all the systems essentially work together.
I see. Okay, very good. So were there other your mom and dad were entrepreneurs? Are there other entrepreneurs in the siblings? I'm guessing there is.
Yeah, there is. Funny enough, all five of my oldest the us oldest five, in some shape or form, are entrepreneurs. My youngest
Wow.
sibling, Amy, has Down syndrome, and there's different severities of it. I'd say she has a more severe case. So she has a really basic, easy job like greeting at Walmart, or she helps out at Walmart at McDonald's a little bit. But all of us older siblings, us older five, all in one shape or another are entrepreneurs. My brother is an extreme entrepreneur. I'm not quite at his level because he's got 4.5 years on me, but he also owns a home service company. They do different services, but he's really big into window cleaning, holiday lights. I think they had over 4,000 houses that they installed lights on last year alone.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, which is insane because that has to be done in the fall. Like everyone wants it done the night before Thanksgiving, of course. So, so that's really cool to see him. He's got about 125 employees in the service industry. Two of my sisters are pretty involved in the dog breeding business. There's so much demand for that, and it's just a matter of keeping up with that quality. And then my oldest sister runs her own medical practice in the homeopathy world.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Your parents must be super proud. I mean, their entrepreneurial blood kind of ran through the kids, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I most definitely. I think my parents, I don't think it was really intentional, but just the way they raised us. I remember a very distinct time. I was about 8 years old, and I feel like we were very disciplined kids. We had a very healthy, like, I don't think it's a fear, but like a respect, especially for my dad. Like, hey, like, he was the authority in our family, and he actually, by being a manager in town, he somehow got his hands on this time machine or not a time machine, but a clock-in machine. And I remember being 8 years old and sprinting out to the shed to clock in time. And I was barefoot, and I was like, I wanted cereal so bad, but I'm like, I got to clock in by 8 o'clock here and I'll eat on the go. But like, we learned discipline at a very young age. And I think we were getting paid like $4 or $5 an hour to do, minor tasks around the farm, but they were things that needed to be done. And, for $4 an hour, it's like, weed whip or pick rock or whatever it was. And that level of discipline really taught us a lot about just what it was like to be an adult or be a functioning person in this world.
I love that story. Your dad on the little farm had a clock in, clock out machine in the barn with a list of like, okay, Daniel's doing this and the other kid's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love that. That is so good.
Yeah. And looking back, like, we all kind of use little parts of what we grew up. My mom, I don't know, she probably heard it on a podcast or somewhere, I don't know, radio show, whatever people listened to in the late 80s, early 90s, but she had a notebook or a notebox card, and it had by day, by child's name, what task we were going to do that day. And like looking back, like,
that is so
I don't
good.
like, I wouldn't credit my mom as being like the most organized person in the world, but I was like, wow, like, if to have 6 kids and be like, okay, here's what's happening. Like, we ran a pretty well-oiled little hobby farm out there, and stuff got done.
It's so good. What's happened to the youth work ethic and the millennial work ethic and Gen Z work ethic today, Daniel? Not quite as strong as how you were raised. At least it doesn't appear that way.
Yeah, Steve, I think what's happening, what I'm observing, and I think it's even happening. I'm 33. I fall in the millennial category. I think what's happening is there's a lot of kids that are being raised in daycares rather than homes, and not that that's bad, but I can almost guarantee you, I don't know what it's like in a daycare, but most of them, I can almost guarantee they're not clocking in and going out and like weed whipping and doing things like that at 8 years old. So I think what's happening is people are just being raised differently, and I also think that we've gotten really far away from some of these character building things that some of our like grandparents went through, like the Great Depression and things like that really put some very valuable lessons. And I know there's a quote out there somewhere, and I'll butcher it, but it's something along the lines of like, good times make soft men, right? And so I think we're kind of in that, where we've had so many great years, and between the government assistance and all that, I think that in today's age, like, we have 17 employees, and what I'm learning is that our best employees are some of our part-time guys. They show up for 2 to 3 days a week, and they're incredible. My full-time guys are great, but I think some of these part-time guys, they love like having a variety of different things, and some of them have different jobs. And I think that that's what we're going to see in these coming generations is
Mm-hmm.
people that they want flexibility. Like the 401k isn't as big of a deal to the next generation coming in. Like they want freedom, they want flexibility. And so like a part-time job is so much better because I don't have to be there 8 a.m. on Friday. I can just tell my boss, hey, I'm available on Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, next month, and they can do their thing. So I think for employers, you have to be kind of creative and know what's going on, know the way that your current whoever you're trying to hire and is great. And we have all different, we have some at my office, the gals who answer my phones in the office, they're, in their 50s and 60s, and they're incredible. They absolutely love working here because they didn't want to work in that's such a driven thing. And we have such a flexible thing. My thing is like, if you show up in time and you do your job, like that's awesome. Like that's what I expect of you. So we weed some of the people out that are lazy and complacent, and they actually they just get weeded out. We've been really fortunate to almost create like a pecking order or like I'm not sure, but like if you don't fit in with the current culture at our company, you kind of just naturally work your way out because you realize you don't fit in with this with the group.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. By the way, before we get into Kura Home, I think you're absolutely right. You said it earlier. We are so far removed from any tough times that the country has gone through, right? Like, and I did this the other day. We are, let's see, we'll call it 90 years from the Depression and almost 70, 80 years, whatever it is, from World War II.
Right.
That's a huge gap since what I would call hard times, right?
Right.
And that several generations. And people today, most people your age just really cannot even relate to anything like that, right? And and it's been soft, it's been easy.
Yeah. And a lot of that, a lot goes into that, but I don't know. I don't think there's very many people that have met someone who saves tinfoil, watches tinfoil.
Right. Exactly.
And that might create some really hard times for us as we get, if we forget the history of what, especially people in this country have gone through. And obviously there's trials, tribulations all over the world. But yeah, I think it'd be pretty important for us to pay some attention in history class for a little bit.
I've told this story on the podcast several times, but this ties right in, then we'll move on. But I threw out some curtains one time. My wife threw out some curtains one time in the back alley in the trash can. And my 90-year-old neighbor, who this is like 10, 15 years ago, who did go through the Depression, she got those curtains out of the trash, and she brought them around to the front of the house on the front porch, and she knocked on the door, and she's like, somebody threw these curtains away. And there you go. That's just a completely different mentality, right? Completely different mentality. Anyway, okay, so you get out of college. Did you know, were you like, I'm going to own my own business? I mean, was that a goal right away?
I always knew I kind of wanted to do something creative. Like I grew up like, stepping back a little bit, like in my very early, like 11, 12, 13-year-old, I started buying and flipping horses. Actually, I'd buy them for like meat price if someone was just going to get rid of them. And I, as a young person, you have a lot of time on your hands. So I would just ride the heck out of these horses all the time around our hobby farm. So I'd buy a horse for like, the cheapest horse I ever bought was $50. And I actually trained that horse for a year, and I sold it for $1,200 to someone who wanted a horse for the sheriff's posse. So getting these horses, quote unquote, bomb proof was something. And I actually even ended up, one person actually paid me to train their horse for a month. I was really, I was like 13, and I had a checking account when I was 12 years old because I was running this little business. And a lot of horses, I'd say my average horse I'd buy for like $350 and I'd sell for like $750 to $900. So not a huge thing, but for a 13, 14-year-old to have $400 or $500 of money on hand, it was pretty nice to have that. So I went to school, I studied, I actually thought I wanted to be a teacher, and just through the education system and learning a lot, I had one guy pulled me aside, and I was actually shadowing him, and he's like, hey, got bad news for you. You're not going to be a teacher. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you're going to be a principal. He's like, your leadership, you're too strong leadership qualities. The school's going to pluck you out like instantly. You'll be a principal probably by your second year. I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah, so if you don't want to be principal, and I thought back, I'm like, my principal was there when I went in at 6 a.m. to the weight room. They were there when I was finishing up with like a game or whatever, a meet at 9 p.m. Like the principal's always there. I'm like, I don't want that lifestyle. So
Yeah.
I actually, through that and then some drama with the Mankato school system, I ended up switching to business marketing. And I wasn't confident enough to start my own business quite out of college. I started working for a company that they sell about 8 million chicken eggs a day. And my main job was to create systems and processes, SOPs, to help them train employees better and faster. Because you can imagine small towns, they had about 5 farms across the country. In these small towns, employees kind of come and go, especially for, a job like packing eggs. It's not exactly like a lifelong career. Some people are there for long time, but so created all that. And then after a year and a half of kind of creating a lot of systems and processes throughout several things on the egg side, not the chicken side, my brother needed someone to help him grow his business. So I joined his company, and
Is that Russell Williams Home
Yep.
Services? Okay.
Yep. And so those guys clean windows and they install holiday lights. And we went from 8 crews to 16 crews in 2 years. So it grew very, very quickly. And it was a really great experience to learn a lot. And then the idea for my current company came up. But I'd say my entire time, like even through college and working for my brother and that egg company, Sparbo, I was also at a side hustle. I was renting out my basement, so I was house hacking that. And I was training and selling training and boarding dogs. And believe it or not, training and boarding dogs, I was making an extra $35,000 a year doing that. And the boarding is pretty passive because the clients would come and you get a relationship with them. So you give them your garage code, they put your dog in the dog kennel in the garage, and I'd make sure I was home, leave for work at whatever, 7:30. I'd be home at noon. I'd let them out for like half hour. Then all afternoon, I'd, play fetch with them. I just wear them out in the backyard. And a tired dog is a happy dog. So you do that, you throw the ball for a half hour, 45 minutes, and you're like, oh, sweet. Now we can just hang out for the rest of the evening. So that was a pretty nice,
Cool.
pretty nice little passive income for several years.
Your brother, was he like, he's like, no, man, just stay here and help me build this? Or were you thinking, yeah, that's cool, but I want my own thing? There had to be some of that conversation going on.
Yeah. So the initial conversation was, I think we should add this on as a branch of your company. You have the clientele, and he actually was he had partnered with another guy, and they were doing like property management, where they were really targeting, you basically had to you had to be like a professional athlete or a top exec in a Fortune like 100 in order to afford their services. But they were targeting those people, and my brother has those customers. But the problem is, even if you got 10% of those customers, like it wasn't scalable. And so my recommendation for those guys was, why don't you scale back what you do, and you can hit your more normal person who's making 100,000, 150,000 and up, and where there's way more of these people, and you've got like your dual income or your stay-at-home parent, and they're just not taking care of their $1 million home, and because of that, things keep breaking down. Mm-hmm. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm going to say that they laughed and they said it was a stupid idea and would never work. So for me, my personality, I was like, I think it is going to work. I came back to our next meeting a month later on that, and I said, I actually did a lot of research on this. It'll work. And they said, no, drop it. That's a dumb idea. So
and they include your brother.
Yeah, my brother and his business partner, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, I got to go. See ya. I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah, I did give him, I talked to a lot of people, did a lot of research for a few months, and then I gave him, I believe it was a 3-month notice, kind of a 3-month heads up.
Did he give you some money to get started in the other one? Was he a partner in the other business or no?
It was offered, but I'm still 100% owner. I have never taken on any. Yeah,
Good
so I've been very fortunate. Had many opportunities. That's one thing for entrepreneurs. I think the first time it feels pretty good, and then pretty soon it's like, there's a lot of people out there that want to, piggyback on all the hard work you've put in. And if you're able to grow your business and stay 100% owner, you can do it, but if you want to grow fast, like depending on what you want to do, there's a lot of people that help you grow fast, sell fast type deal. And so depending on what you're looking to do, there's a lot of opportunities out there if you're looking for that. But get a little bit of success underneath your belt. And there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of cash that would love to jump in with your,
especially once you've gotten, you're started and you got clients and you got recurring revenue and you're producing net income and you got cash in the bank. Isn't it so funny? Everybody wants to give you cash when you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. 100%. Yep. I just had a conversation with someone about a month ago, and I'm like, you're not whatever. I'm like, without even saying numbers, your number of what you value my company at, looking at my P&L and what I value at, we're going to be so far apart. But secondly, like, I don't need you right now. Where were you when I was like working on my garage in 2017, 2018, when I would have loved seed money? Like, that would have been awesome. So yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. Are you running it then as a lifestyle family business, or are you running it hyper growth, try to sell it someday? What mentality and stage are you in?
Yeah, so we were growing very aggressively for a long time, and right now I'm very, very involved in my family and my personal life. I'm actually in a week and a half I'm competing in the Ironman in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Nice.
And so that takes a stupid amount of training. This is the second one I've done, but the last time I did an Ironman, I was 11 years younger, about 25 pounds less, and two kids and a wife were not in existence at the time. So I've learned that life comes at you pretty quick with some of that stuff. So I think this Ironman is going to take me about 2 hours longer to complete. But I've been very, very fortunate, especially in the last year, Steve, to get a group of individuals together that really are working as a team. And without even trying to aggressively grow, we're probably going to experience somewhere between 20 and 25% growth this year. And that's with me being very uninvolved in the day-to-day activities at our company.
That's great, man. Can you share how many employees, give us let's do this. Give us the Kura Home overview for the listeners real quick. Just give us the kind of the elevator pitch. And by the way, it's Kura Home, Kura home.com. Give us the pitch real quick.
Yeah. So we primarily offer two services. Right now we have 800 clients that are set up on a reoccurring routine maintenance subscription plan. So we visit their home once every 3 months and take care of up to 35 different services, providing and changing all your filters, smoke alarm batteries, cleaning your refrigerator coils, dryer vent AC units, just everything you're supposed to be doing as a perfect homeowner. And right now, about 40% of our business includes one-time services such as dryer vent cleaning and air duct cleaning. Okay. Additionally, what we are now offering is a licensing concept. It's really similar to a franchise, except for you can call it whatever you want. So we train you in how to do everything from literally everything. We give you all of our documentation from our employee handbook to we have our operations manual that will tell you that the garbage disposal was invented in Racine, Wisconsin in 1927. So that when you're cleaning and sharpening that for a customer, you have something to talk about with them. So that's been going really well. So our growth strategy is continuing to grow that reoccurring revenue, especially air duct cleaning was boomed in 2020, and now it's leveled out to what I would expect it to be. But we have sold 2 licenses, and so those are operating in Seattle, Washington, and then just north of Orlando, Florida.
Licenses? You mean like a franchise, or what do you mean?
Yep, it's exactly like a franchise. It's just the only, and we actually did try to franchise our company, Steve. The problem that we had is everyone who's inquiring already had an existing home service business of some sort, like a plumber, HVAC, etc., handyman, and they couldn't figure out how to mix and match the two brands, which is franchise. The main thing you're buying is like the trademark of the brand of Kura Home. So we said, well, why don't we lower the price a little bit from your stereotypical franchise and let's lower the price to license, where we will still give you all the exact same training and everything. The only difference is that you can still call it Bob's Handyman or Bob's Home Maintenance, and we'll teach you how to add this recurring revenue into your business, because we have 800 customers that our average client is paying about $1,600 a year, and they're all set up on auto pay. They're all set up on auto visits. So we have all their visits booked out every 3 months, for 2 years. And there's a lot of people in the home service industry that are very, very interested in that type of reoccurring revenue.
Would you, if somebody from Colorado called you and said, hey, I want to do a Kura Home Maintenance service in this area, would you have the conversation with them?
Yeah, 100%, Steve. From my research a couple months ago, there's over 195 metropolitan areas in the United States that I think this service would do really, really well in. There's several more that would be just fine, but I think it could grow and scale at the same level that we've grown and scaled in the Minneapolis market. So yeah, we're open to all markets at this time.
And how do you differentiate yourself with competitors that do something similar? Like what makes you special above, I don't know, Bob's Home Maintenance service?
Yeah. The main thing that I would say is really different from us compared to anyone else that's operating this service is that we've learned how to scale it. I've done a lot of research. I've found two other companies. One of them is we've been around for 7 years. I found another company that's been doing it for 16 years and they have 160 customers. So we've figured out how to scale it very quickly. The largest problem that most people find really quickly with the recurring revenue side is that if you dive on like the backside of Google and you said, how many people search routine home maintenance in my area? Well, I know that in Minneapolis, there's 3.5 million people and there's like 18 searches a month, which is like
Not very many.
So you
Yep.
can't buy customers where I can buy an air duct cleaning customer for sure because people will search best air duct cleaning company or air duct cleaning near me, and I can buy and I can advertise for those customers. So what we have found is a creative and affordable way to attract the customer and keep them on long term. We still serve our very first customer from August of 2016 today. So that's something that I think is really important is creating systems and processes in place on how do you affordably and profitably attract these customers. And that's what we figured out. And that's what most companies that try, they don't succeed is because they can't create systems and processes or find an affordable way of attracting that customer.
Hmm. Sounds to me like you're having fun growing the company. You're having fun running it. It's profitable. You own 100%, and you're like, oh, I would do some franchises maybe, but I'm also now trying to enjoy my family, and I'm trying to have a little hobby on the side. And if we get some additional growth or franchising, great. If we don't, I'm fine with that too. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, that's Steve, you've got my number. That's where I'm at. I'd love to sell some more licenses this year. They might not roll in, but we're working on growing that stuff and getting that going, but we're getting through on all that stuff. So yeah, we want to grow. I think that's my very natural thing, but I've got the Ironman is a huge thing. I've got the 2 draft horses at home and the one just had a foal about a month ago, and we've got all these chickens, and my buckets are very full. I'm very thankful. And, my wife and I are very intentional on going at least one date night a month. And it's getting a little more tricky with kids, but she said something very similar. She's like, you seem really happy. And I am.
It's key. It's key. I know you're still younger and I'm sure you've heard this before, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. More volume and revenue does not necessarily equal more happiness, my friend. I mean,
for sure.
Just running a bigger company isn't necessarily going to make you happier. As long as you've hit a certain level and you got a lifestyle that you enjoy with your family, man, I mean, that's a good thing. And if it grows, if it gets bigger, that's great too. But I've seen so many times where somebody gets into a nice rhythm as a business owner. They got a nice little business running. And then they get into this weird, like, I don't know, they saw a podcast about some company from the Bay Area that scaled really fast and made billions of dollars, and like, oh, we got to do that too. And so then they start trying to chase that little dream, and then they crumble it all.
Mm-hmm.
There's, for the listeners out there is nothing wrong with having a profitable service business that feeds your family, that gives you enough time to enjoy your life and creates a nice lifestyle. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, we don't all have to like grow a company and sell it for billions. And in fact, the percentage of people that do that are very, very tiny. Social media makes it seem like everybody does that, but that's not reality.
Right. Yep. For sure.
Not reality. The average customer spends $1,600 a year. Is that what you said? Is that your average?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit more than that. It ends up at like 1672, right in there. I think our average customer that signed on last year was like $418 a quarter. So just slightly above that $1,600 a year for the routine maintenance. Our air duct cleaning average customer is right around 558. But that's our clients. We do get repeat customers there, but it's you can barely call it reoccurring. They're getting their air ducts cleaned about every 3 to 4 years, so it's not nearly as great as that every 3-month business.
Are we talking my air filters, my fire alarms, my refrigerator,
my
air ducts? What else?
Yeah, so we're cleaning your bathroom fans. I mean, we can go through the whole
bathroom fans.
Yep. So like in your kitchen, we're gonna clean and seal your granite countertops. We're gonna clean your dishwasher. We're gonna clean that dishwasher filter. We're gonna clean the garbage disposal. Your range hood that gets really greasy, we're gonna do that. Yep. Refrigerator and all your stainless steel appliances, we're going to clean those down for you. We're going to change the water filter in your refrigerator and clean the coils there. I think that's just about it in the kitchen. Laundry room, almost all dishwashers or washing machines, excuse me, have a filter now. We also clean that interior, like that rubber gasket gets really gross, smelly. That's like people's least favorite thing to do. Dryer vent, internal and external.
Dryer. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's really. I think almost every customer has us clean their dryer annually.
How about behind the freezers that are out in my garage, like back in there and the coils and all?
We'll do that for you too. Yep, we're happy to do that too. So what's really nice with our estimator tool, Steve, is that it's like a la carte options. So we can walk through your house, and on our tool, we walk you through and we say, hey, Steve, if I lived here, knowing what I know, here's everything that I would do, but you can pick whatever you want. So it's all la carte options. Then if you say, well, I actually have 3 refrigerators, we have a little scroll bar that you check that, and I can scroll it to 3, and it just changes the price automatically. And then you can see, oh, that's an extra $20 a quarter to have those cleaned once a year. Maybe I'll just do it myself. And so, yeah, whatever you want.
Very nice. How many employees you got?
Right now we're at 17 employees.
17 employees. And you got how many vehicles, trucks or whatever? I saw the truck on the website, van or
Yeah,
whatever.
yep. Right now we're running 8 crews on a daily basis in our Minnesota location.
When you say crews, does that mean vehicles or crews or 4 crews that use 3 trucks? What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything. So it's like 8 vans going out daily. I try to have each van. Now I don't cut people in half, but I try to have 1.5 guys per crew. So
Okay.
if I want to be running 8 crews or 8 vans a day, I want to have 12 employees. And what that allows me to do is if a guy has a family emergency or is sick or something, I don't have to reschedule 12 or $1,500 worth of work a day. I can divide and conquer.
Are the vans leased or you own them?
We own, well, a few of them we have loans on, but we do own the vehicles. I have not taken the lease option. Something I look into every once in a while, but it's always for tax purposes. It's always made more sense for us to own them.
Good to know. Okay. Yeah, very good. And not a lot of equipment involved, I don't guess, besides the truck, and not a lot of like heavy machinery or anything, I don't think, right?
Yeah, correct. Our most expensive piece of equipment is actually the air compressor that we use for air duct cleaning, dryer vent cleaning, and a few other miscellaneous things. But you can equip a vehicle for about $7,400, and that's if you started with nothing. Like you didn't have a screwdriver to your name. So to go from if you were going to buy a new van today and completely set it up without any pre-existing, it's about $7,400.
978 reviews on Google with a 4.9 rating.
Mm-hmm.
That is pretty good, bro.
Thank you.
That is solid. That does not happen by accident, my friends.
Steve, I think one thing that really changed our philosophy and I think a lot of companies have like really great like mottos and phrases and mission statements and we've got those things. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to, if my operations manager calls me with a conflict, and it doesn't happen very often, and he's not quite sure what to do, I can ask one simple question, and I ask him, if this customer was your sister, your mom, or your grandma, how would you want them to be treated in the current situation? And when you are treating customers as if they're legitimately your family, and that's how you plan on servicing their homes, and when a conflict does arise, like you said, we've been very intentional about our customer service, but we still make mistakes. When you treat people that way, they can feel it and they're thankful. And when we have a callback, it happens more often than not that my operations manager, when he goes to a callback, ends up getting a tip. Like people give him like 20 or 40 or 50 bucks because they're like, the way you guys handled this was so awesome. Most companies don't even call me back. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And those people become repeat customers and they become spokespersons for your company. And I think that just holding on to that, which is something that I learned growing up with my family. I mean, in the dog business, sounds great. Cute puppies, you're selling them, but I saw my parents, I helped them when they were doing taxes when I was a very young age. I listened to the conversations they had with customers. I mean, things happen when you're dealing with animals, and the way that they handled things 100% of truth, 100% of the time, and the way they treated customers built a foundation for me to allow me to it seems easy to run a service-based business when you have that education and that background of just the way you want to treat people.
I think service-based businesses and trade skills in general are the future of safe careers, especially with the advancement of AI and technology wiping out. Well, I don't want to scare everybody. I don't think it's going to wipe out everybody that works on a laptop, but right now you're in a safe zone, my friend. Everybody that works on a laptop is not in a safe zone.
Right. Yeah, I'll give you an example of that, Steve, on ways that we've leaned out a little bit. We had two gals running our social media combined, and they were doing like all the things. I mean, like they're writing blogs and posting in Google My Business and doing all the things. They were making a combined $120,000 a year plus payroll taxes and all those things. We outsourced that to one virtual assistant who's working for $12,000 a year and is very thankful for the job. Tells us almost every week. And between that and things like ChatGPT, they completely taken over everything that those two employees were doing. So there's things that are, so we're saving $108,000 a year plus, taxes on this person who's extremely thankful for their job. And that's just one example. I mean, I would still say we're a small company. And if we're doing that, what are these really large companies doing? So people are getting smarter, and especially with some of the, the economy is constantly changing and things like that. I think people are gonna, continue to lean out a little bit. And
totally, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The trade skills. We have a bunch of construction going on the street out in front of our house, and I told my wife, I'm like, you see all these guys out here working on these trade skill guys? Like, these are all the guys that are safe. These are the guys that are going to be in high demand.
Yeah.
Software engineers and people that write content on social media and stuff.
Yeah, you're going to have to be really good for sure. You're going to have to be great to keep your job. But yeah, my son is turning 3 here in a little bit, and we start to have he's starting to ask really great questions, which is interesting as coming from.
Is he adding milk to the list and putting it on the refrigerator yet, like his dad did?
Not quite. He did ask me if I got spankings when I was little. So he's he's getting pretty smart, but the friends or whatever, they're like, oh, what do you because I think I own like 8 LLCs or something, and we've got a few short-term rentals and bought a building that Kura Home now rents and things like that. And it's like, what do you want Weston to be? I'm like, I don't know, but I hope he's either involved in like the trades of some sort or real estate, because those two things are going to be needed forever.
Couldn't agree more. Great advice for the listeners. I agree. Trade skills and real estate. And by the way, my sons are your age, pretty much. My oldest boy is your age. And I told him the other day, I said, I don't care if interest rates are high right now or not. If you come across a good property, buy it right now.
Yeah.
And you can refi later if interest rates go down. But don't be passing up on property, because anyway.
For sure. I agree.
All right, my friend. So hang on the phone here for a minute before you hang up. But for the listeners, one more time. So Kura Home, kurahome.com. You can also connect with Daniel on LinkedIn if you want. Anything else you want to mention? Your social media, anything else you want to mention? Any other websites or anything?
Yeah, for sure. Follow us on social media. We're kind of doing all the things. Our Instagram account actually just hit 18,000 followers. So we're pretty active, and we try to post very valuable content that, worst case scenario, you might become a better homeowner by following us on social media. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. We're pretty active on there, and we're always happy to answer questions, or if you have questions about adding a routine maintenance or recurring revenue to your business, we'd be happy to connect on that way too.
I noticed you had some video tips on YouTube, your YouTube as well. So
yeah, if you watch all of our stuff, you could really run a well-oiled house. Like you would really know your stuff. We share a lot of content to help people become better homeowners.
Daniel, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex show and sharing your story. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.